Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, where you all are streaming from. Listen, y'all know how I do. It's so much easier to go live than it is to try to fit up this video. But as you all are coming in, make sure you all are hitting that like button. And if you like what you see, subscribe. Here are my two channels. Please subscribe to these two channels. Please subscribe to these two channels. Listen. When I tell you there was a hearing today, there was a hearing today, and when I tell you a lot of stuff was revealed, The prosecution briefly laid out what they believe that their case is going to be. And when I tell you it's a doozy, I tell you it's a doozy. So, what we have today, them just updating the prosecution's theory of Celeste's death. And as y'all come in, y'all hit that like button. So let me get into this because I have a copy of, as you can see right here, I have a copy. Y'all hold on just a second. Sorry about that, y'all. I got a telephone call so late at night. I apologize. So I have a copy of the information provided by Deadline. We will definitely go over that. But first, what I want to do is I want to go over. Let me see, y'all. I want to go over the news report about this. Let them get their information in, and then we will read that. So y'all can see this. Let me make sure. Adding to the stage. I promise y'all. I need me a. So this is ABC 7 Eyewitness News. This article is written by. Doesn't say right off the bat. But we're going to be watching this video. Let me make it bigger, full screen.
because there's a lot that went on today.
Revealing disturbing new details in the murder of teenager Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Prosecutors say the singer David watched her bleed to death and also purchased a chainsaw after she died.
David was in court today for a hearing in the murder of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. And late this afternoon, many disturbing new details were revealed.
We have Eyewitness News team coverage. Investigative reporter Kevin Ozebek digs deeper into those court documents. And Eyewitness News reporter Rob Hayes is live in downtown LA with what we learned today. We begin with Rob.
Yeah, Mark, released today was a slew of proof of what prosecutors say is proof that David Burke killed Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Burke's attorney wanted that brief sealed. The judge declined that request. And what is in that brief is truly disturbing. From rising star to suspect in the gruesome dismemberment of a 14-year-old girl, David Anthony Burke, better known as the singer David, back in court today, his attorney fighting to get a legal brief sealed. And for good reason. The prosecution's 8-page brief describing disturbing evidence. Prosecutors allege Celeste Rivas Hernandez and Burke first met when she was just 11 years old, and they have explicit photos of the two. The brief also spelling out that Burke stabbed Celeste several times and watched her bleed to death. Then he purchased tools to dismember her body. Amazon delivering 2 chainsaws, a body bag, and a blue inflatable swimming pool to his home, all ordered under a fake name. Also in the brief, prosecutors
Not Amazon catching strays, but let's continue.
Say Burke cut off 2 of her fingers because one of them had a tattoo of his name on it. Prosecutors also allege they have text messages that discuss sex between the two, her pregnancy and an abortion. Celeste texting Burke, quote, "All we do is have sex and just hang out, man. I want more than that for myself." As for motive, prosecutors claim they have text messages between the two where Celeste threatens to expose Burke and destroy his career. Burke is accused of killing the girl who disappeared last April. Her remains were found in September in plastic bags in the front trunk of a Tesla registered to Burke. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani believes Burke's defense will most likely argue that Celeste accidentally died from an overdose and Burke panicked, cutting up and hiding her body.
And if you're looking at the 3 sets of charges, the mutilation of a corpse is the least serious. So if they can somehow fall on that and avoid either the sex crimes or the murder itself, that would be a huge win for the defense.
Now, prosecutors also say they have surveillance video that shows Burke was the last one to drive the Tesla to the spot where Celeste's body was found. Now, he is due back in court on May 12th for a procedural hearing and again on the 26th for his preliminary hearing. Reporting live in downtown LA, Rob Hayes, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Rob,
Y'all heard all of that? We're going to stop it right there. We're going to stop it right there. You heard that information, and we're going to go through it in just one moment. Give me one moment. Here we go. Here we go. Because I wanted them to give us a overview of what's going on. So let's read. And shout out to Deadline for getting a copy of this. Let's read what was filed. Because again, they talked about it. The preliminary hearing is going to be continued to May 26th. There is going to be another status meeting, a hearing. When did he say? May 12th? And then May 26th is going to be the preliminary hearing. But baby, we got a lot. And people had talked about the prosecution taking their time. You know, people are like, oh my God, I cannot even believe that they would take so much time to get this information out, or why they didn't go ahead and arrest. This is why. Because they were making sure that they had all their ducks in a row. All their ducks in a row. And I don't know exactly what the defense has and what they don't have, but this is high time for the defense to sit down and talk with their client and get as much information as they can, because this is not anything that they need to be surprised about. None of this information they should be surprised. So again, a lot of our sleuths, shout out to our online sleuths that have talked about this case. Some of them had mentioned that the Tesla records everything. So we now are hearing that the Tesla record David being the last person to operate the vehicle. We are talking about certain motives. We've got SA motives as to why he wanted her gone. And we also have the vehicle in which all of this happened. So let's go over this document. And again, if you are joining me, please make sure that you all are hitting that like button. Make sure that you all are hitting that like button, y'all. I really appreciate that. All right. Let's get into this. Let's get into this document. Let me change a couple of these overlays. Let me remove a couple of them. All right, here we go. Let's read this because this is going to be interesting. Nathan Hochman, the District Attorney of Los Angeles County, by Nathan Hochman, by Beth Silverman. And she's ready to go. Beth Silverman over there at the prosecution office, she's ready to go. And she probably is because all of the information they spent from September to April, gathering all the information that they needed and that they could. I know a lot of us out here, us internet sleuth, wanted things to happen much quicker. But they were being methodical. They were making sure that they had as much information as possible so that they can, so when they charge him, he can't wiggle out. So right here, you see on this information that it was filed April 29, 2023, David W. Slayton, executive officer. So case number 26CJCF02399, the people of the state of California versus David Anthony Burke. This is the people's brief regarding preliminary hearing evidence. It's dated April 29th. The time is 1:30 p.m. in court, Department 105. So we are good because we have this stamp right here. And like I said, this is state court. Federal court, you will see it going across the top, but this is state court. As long as it has been stamped by the clerk of court, we're good. Let's see what the people prosecution says. Sorry about that. Why is all right, come on. Okay, let me get this a little smaller because it is not cooperating. All right. To the Honorable Judge Charlene Elmedo of the above entitled court, and to the defendant and his counsel of record, the people submit the following brief to provide a roadmap for the evidence the people intend to introduce at the preliminary hearing scheduled to begin on May 1st, 2026. And remember, the prosecution says that they're ready. The prosecution says that they are ready, Freddie. Let's get the background facts. The dismembered body of 14. Now, also, I'm going to do a trigger warning. If any of you all are having issues in regards to information regarding SA, domestic violence, or anything like that, let me pull up my trigger. Let's put my trigger warning up here. Y'all read this and read this well. I want to make sure that it's up here because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on that we're going to be talking about. There might be some not so friendly YouTube words, but I do want to let y'all know if this is something that y'all are not interested in, y'all go ahead and pull away. All right. The dismembered body of 14-year-old Celeste R., the victim, was discovered in the front trunk of a defendant's Tesla Model X on September 8, 2025. The vehicle had been towed 3 days prior from 1405 Bluebird Avenue, which was parked approximately 400 feet from the defendant's home, and there they're giving the address. And this was in the Hollywood Hills. Surveillance video and other evidence confirmed defendant was the last person to drive the vehicle on July 29th, 2025, before he left Los Angeles on a concert tour. July 29th. Look at these dates. We got to keep up with these dates. Let me make sure that this thing is on continuous. Give me one moment because it's all right. On September 8th, the manager of the tow yard where the Tesla had been impounded noted the strong smell of decay and the presence of flies coming from the vehicle. He notified LAPD Hollywood auto detectives, who determined the Tesla was registered to the defendant through departmental resources. At the tow yard, LAPD detectives opened the Tesla front storage compartment and observed a black cadaver bag covered in insects. Inside the bag, they discovered a severely decomposed head and torso. A plastic garbage bag beneath the black cadaver bag contained the dismembered arms and legs. However, the victim's ring and pinky fingers on her left hand had been amputated and were not found in the Tesla. So let's listen to what we've read. Let's talk about what we've read. So there is a black cadaver bag. You had to order that. I'm wondering, do the prosecution have information that was ordered? Then we have black trash bags. On September 16, 2025, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner Department positively identified the body from dental records as belonging to the victim. Pursuant to their investigation, LAPD robbery homicide detectives determined that the victim and the defendant met in January 2022 when she was 11 years old. And we're going to pause right there because if you watch the video that I did with Danny and Blue, we talked about systems, social systems, and how we believe that these social systems that Celeste had failed her. So here we're having an 11-year-old that was able to intersect with at that point in time an 18, 19-year-old young man. So you have an 11-year-old child having the ability to intersect with an 18, 19-year-old young man. What systems failed Celeste? If you want some more insight in what we thought, go back and watch that last video that I did. It's called Shattered Innocence. So let's continue. First off the bat, her family, her school system, her friend group, her community, they failed her. Because there's no reason as to how these people intersect. Because remember, D4VD, David, is from Houston, Texas. These people are from California. They live in Lake Elsinore. He lived in Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, how did they intersect? That's important. And it's not about blaming the victim or blaming all these other things. I need us to be very clear because this can help other young people. It's so very important that we kind of figure all of this stuff out as we go. All right. It says that detectives determined that the victim and defendant met in January 2022 when she was 11 years old. They began a sexual relationship in November 2023 when the victim was just 13 years old and the defendant was 18. So this is telling me he met her when he was 2 years later. No, that's 1 year later. Basically. So they met when he was 17 and then they had sexual relations 1 year later when he was 18. Detectives learned that the victim had been reported missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department by her family who live in Lake Elsinore in February and April of 2024. RCSD telephonically contacted defendant on February 17th, 2024, after they identified a phone number in the victim's phone records that belonged to him. During the call, defendant claimed that he had spoken to the victim last on February 13th or 14th, but stated he was unaware that she was a minor or that she had been reported missing. RCSD advised him that Los Angeles Sheriff's Department deputies will be coming to his home. On that day, defendant was living at the residence that they have on here in West Hollywood. RCSD requested that LAPD or LAS Sheriff's Department conduct a welfare check at defendant's home. So, we see at this point, they met in 2022. Someone, somehow, somewhere knew. We're looking at her systems, whether it be from her family, whether it be from her friends, whether it be from her school, whether it be from her community. Someone somehow knew that she had hooked up with D4VD, aka David. So we're talking about from 2022, and then things started getting dicey in February of 2024. Because his telephone number, they had the victim's phone records, and his telephone number had been in the call log. So he has spoken to the police, and he claims that he was not aware that she was underage. This is what this man is saying, that he was not aware that she was underage. Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. And thank you so much for joining me in my late night stream. He was not aware of this. So this tells me already that, again, when we talk about the systems that interact with Celeste, we've got her family. Somebody in her family knew that she had been back and forth to Los Angeles with this man. To the point that they filed a missing persons report, or if you're in the social service thing, a lot of these missing persons reports are usually runaway reports. It depends on what state that you live in. So you filed a runaway reports on 2 occasions, in February and in April. But the police talked to you in February 2024. Let's continue. During the call, defendant claimed that he had spoken to the victim last on February 13th or 14th, but stated that he was unaware she was a minor or that she had been reported missing. Riverside County Sheriff Department advised him that the Los Angeles Sheriff Department deputies were coming to his home. On that day, defendant was living at the address that they have listed in West Hollywood. Riverside County Sheriff Department's request that LA County Sheriff's Department conduct a welfare check at the defendant's home. The LASD deputies went to defendant's home that night at 8:15. This is February 17th, and informed him that the victim was a 13-year-old runaway. Defendant again claimed that he was unaware that she was a minor and that he had only met the victim once in person in November 2023. Already lying. However, defendant showed deputies a yearbook photo of the victim that he had on his cell phone. Although he claimed to be unaware of where the victim was at the time, she returned home 2 days later. Because remember, she was going back and forth to her home. She would leave her home for whatever reason, and with this, she returned home. Now, if you were to sit and believe that this man didn't know who she was, how old she was, any of those things, that February 2024 visit from the sheriff's department, a reasonable young man would say, I need to not talk to her anymore. I need to make sure that I block her number. I need to make sure that she no longer has access. I need to make sure of these things. But again, I'm thinking these are things that average young men would do. But let's continue. Despite being informed by law enforcement that the victim was only 13, the defendant continued to pursue her. After the victim returned home in February 2024, her parents took her cell phone away. Defendant drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone that the defendant purchased so they can stay in contact. You know, there's this video floating around, this picture where it appears like he's like counting some money or doing something, and there is like this young man that's standing before him like with a paper bag in his hand. I don't know if that video is what they're talking about here, but again, you are pursuing this young lady to the point $1,000 to somebody in a junior high school. You didn't have to give them. I don't want y'all to mishear me. I am not trying to do any, this disgusts me to the highest of levels. But to pay a junior high school student $1,000, you really wanted to get back in contact with this young lady, with this girl. Throughout 2024, the victim spent a significant amount of time with defendant, including summer weekends at his home in the Hollywood Hills, and traveling with him to Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. Now, wait a damn minute. Wait a damn minute. Y'all help me out with this one. Y'all help me out with this. Because I am confused and I'm perplexed. For her to go to London town, she had to have had a passport. She had to have had a passport. She had to have a passport. And again, if you watch my last video, I've said over and over and over again, there are social systems that failed this young lady. Because let's just be clear. She had to have had a passport to travel to London town. Where would she have gotten a passport? She would have gotten a passport exactly. Just think 2000. She had to have gotten a passport. So this is telling me again, so many systems have failed this young lady, this young girl, failed her, 13 years old. And I've said this before, and I will say this again until I am blue, green, purple in the face. People schmexualized young girls and conflate it as them being mature. Excuse me. And I know people say, oh, well, they do that to boys too. Yes. But people think that because a young girl can cook and clean and she has her menstrual cycle, then all of a sudden she's so mature. She's not. You all are sexualizing her at a younger age. Exactly. They all need to have some consequences. I think they should be up under the jail with some dirt on top of them. But every system in her life failed her. Where were we? And to Texas to meet his family. So he took her. Not only did he take her across the pond, he also took this girl to meet his family. Now I'm side-eyeing them. Because how the hell you not look at this girl juxtaposed to your son? Now I know your son is only 5'3". But there's no way in the world that you're going to make me believe that you didn't look at this girl and know that she was underage. Her parents, his parents. April 23rd, 2025 is the likely date of the victim's death and when all of her cellular activity ceased. The night prior, April 22nd, 2025, defendant and the victim engaged in a lengthy argument described in detail in their text messages. Come on. The messages reveal the victim's jealousy over defendant's relationship with other women. So he is having a sexual relation. He's having a sexual relation, illegal relation with a 13-year-old, trying to convince her that she is woman. She is a complete and total woman. Meanwhile, he is also having relations with women of his own age. Because there has been rumor, and I say rumor until it's told to us that, put in a document that they're going to raise their hand to the Bible and everything about. But there has been rumors about him allowing this second Celeste to try to be the face of who he was actually interested in, which I don't think he was, or any other women that he says that he was interested in. I don't think he was. I think he was doing that to save face with the people around him. But everything started closing in on him because you got people you've paid, you've got children that you've paid $1,000 to get a cell phone to. Do you not think that those children, because they probably asked you for more money, that didn't talk to other different people about the fact that you are running around giving money? D4VD David, you're giving money to get her a phone? Let's continue. The messages reveal the victim's jealousy over defendant's relationship with other women, as defendant led her to believe they had a future together. She became extremely upset and threatened to disclose damaging information about her relationship with the defendant to end his career and destroy his life. Defendant's first studio album was due to be released on April 25th, 2025. He had an emerging multi-million-dollar career already in progress. He also had multiple product endorsement, which were highly profitable. At approximately 8:40 p.m. on April 23rd, 2025, defendant sent a Uber to transport the victim from her Lake Elsinore home to his residence. I will be all kinds of flabbergasted. The police come to your home and tell you that this girl is 13 years old and she is a runaway. You still are in a illicit, illegal relationship with said girl. She confronts you on the fact that she's thinking that she is your everything, because again, you've groomed her to believe that she is this competent woman. But now you've got your album coming out, you're doing streams and everything like that with prominent YouTubers and Twitch streamers and kick streamers and all of this kind of stuff. You're about to go on your world tour, and you've got this 13-year-old in your way. And then you send an Uber to pick her up from Lake Elsinore to Los Angeles. Y'all, let's do this. I'm going to use my Google I'm going to use my Google Maps. Give me one moment. You send an Uber, and that ride, according to Google Maps, is 1 hour and 20 minutes away. You send an Uber to go pick her up from Lake Elsinore to the Hollywood Hills. And that says that it is about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes. We don't know where in the Hollywood Hills. We do, and I didn't want to put their address in there. But you have them going to the Hollywood Hills with this. Y'all. And a lot of men will be running around here and tell you that they good men and they're this and they're that. Who were the people around David that knew that this was a girl and enabled him anyway? Because we do understand and know that his record company was the one that was leasing the places that he was staying. I don't know if it was an Airbnb. I don't know how they were leasing this whole situation. But clearly, your management or somebody knew, particularly they had to have known when the police showed up at the home. All right. They communicated before and during her Uber ride, which dropped her off at the defendant's Hollywood Hills home around 10:10 p.m. At approximately 10:30 p.m., defendant sent text messages to the victim inquiring where she was. The people contend that this was part of the defendant's premeditated plan to cover up the murder, as she was already deceased by this time. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. He was trying to get rid of the evidence. This whole situation is unfortunate because there was nobody on her side for real. Both of their parents knew and didn't do anything. Even her classmates. Again, that's what happens when all of these social systems fail you. And sometimes these social systems are thinking that somebody else is doing the work. And I will say to you all, if you all are in somebody's social system and you believe something is not right, it only costs you 15 minutes to call the police, to do a welfare check, to call a family member to see if they know something is going on. It only costs you 15 minutes. Can you imagine? Because there's a teacher that's floating online that was talking about, well, I knew who this person was, and I knew that he was a rapper, and I knew that they had been in contact with each other. Not to mention the fact that teachers are mandatory reporters. But can you imagine? Because the voice of a teacher has weight. Can you imagine if this teacher would have told the police what he knew back when he knew it? Coupled with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, the Los Angeles Sheriff Department. Can you imagine with all of that information coupled, at the very least, he would have left her alone. At the most, he would have been arrested, tried, and put up under the jail. Knowing he had to silence the victim before she ruined his music career, as she had threatened, very soon after her arrival at his home, the defendant stabbed victim to death multiple times and stood by while she bled out. At no time did he call law enforcement or 911 or take her to an emergency room to attempt to save her life. Despite knowing that she was pruned from the timeline and her family was trying to find her, the evidence will show defendant lied and claimed he did not know where she was. In fact, defendant drove to Santa Barbara County immediately after the victim passed away, attempting to dispose of her property and destroy evidence. At approximately 11:30 p.m. on April 23rd, 2025, he drove away from his home as he texted and called the victim's home asking where she was. Again, these were acts calculated and planned to set up his defense within a very short timeline after the victim's vicious pruning. Defendant drove his Tesla north on the 101 freeway to San Marcos Pass Road, State Road 154 near Lake Cachuma in Santa Barbara County. He returned home earlier the following morning on April 24th, 2025, before going to a radio interview for the release of his album that week. He sent 2 additional texts to the victim's phone that day, which obviously went unanswered because she was already deceased. After April 26, 2025, the defendant never attempted to contact her again. Because what was going on? He was promoting his album and he was getting ready to go on tour. Tellingly, defendant subsequently purchased tools to carry out his plot to dismember and dispose of the victim's body. On April 24th, 2025, defendant ordered a shovel from Home Depot that was delivered to his home from Postmates. On May 1st, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered 2 chainsaws to his home. On May 5th, 2025, defendant ordered and Amazon subsequently delivered a body bag. So you can order these doggone things on Amazon. Heavy duty laundry bags and a blue inflatable pool to his home. He made these purchases under the fake name Victoria Mendez. On May 8th, 2025, defendant returned to the same area in Santa Barbara County, leaving his home around 11:30 p.m. He returned to the area again on May 31st, 2025. This is an isolated site off of State Road 154 where the victim's identification was subsequently discovered in January of 2026. Let me just take a brief break from reading this, because this is sickening. When they tell you, I used to hear all the time, they talked about criminals were dumb. Criminals were stupid. And reading all of this information, I am tending to believe that they are dumb and that they are stupid. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cooked. Let's continue. On May 8th, 2025, defendant returned to the same area in Santa Barbara County, leaving his home around 11:30 p.m. He returned to the area again on May 31st, 2025. Now remember, he was driving his Tesla, and his Tesla was recording every place he went. Every place he went. The prosecution basically has evidence to show he was the last one driving and doing whatever he was doing in his Tesla. Hold on, let's continue. Additionally, on July 7th, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered a, quote, burn cage to his home under the same fake name as part of his plan to incinerate evidence. Now, let me tell you about these burn cages. If you live in places in the South, and I understand that, because it's California, and California has a history of wildfires and all kinds of stuff like that, you can conclude that having a burn cage is illegal. However, if you live in the South and you live on your own land or your acreage, in some places having that burn cage is not illegal. It probably was legal for him in Texas to have it, but it's not legal for him to have it in Los Angeles. Because he thought he probably was going to be able to go back to State Road 154 and ignite this burn cage. But that's a no-go because of the fact that California had just been through a bad fire where several people's homes had been destroyed and all of these things. There was no conscionable way that he was going to be able to use that burn cage out on that state road, simply because California was probably and possibly and still is in a drought. Moreover, Defendant took horrifying measures to destroy and discard the victim's body. After placing her body into the blue inflatable pool to prevent her blood from spilling onto his garage floor, defendant used a chainsaw and perhaps other tools to dismember her. Small blue plastic fragments were found embedded into the victim's remains, which were collected by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Department. Now, when you're doing content like this, I was very upset that they had sealed the coroner's, the medical examiner's report. However, shout out to them, the LAPD, shout out to the district attorney's office, because this is absolute information that should have been kept under wraps at that time. Where are we? Which were collected by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Department. The fragments were analyzed by the LAPD's Forensic Science Division Trace Analysis Unit. An expert was able to make a physical fit match from the blue fragments to the blue inflatable pool purchased by defendant on May 25, 2025. On May 2025, excuse me. In order to distance himself from the victim, he amputated her left ring and pinky finger because her ring finger contained a tattoo of his name. Her fingers have not been recovered. Defendant then placed her head and torso into the cadaver bag he purchased. He placed her limbs in a garbage bag, which he deposited into his front trunk, laying the cadaver bag on top. For several weeks or possibly months, defendant left the victim's body to decompose inside this Tesla. He lied to friends, business associates, and others who noticed the strong smell of decay in and around his home. There is a video that shows D4VD and 3 of his friends, or whoever he was doing streams with. Apparently they were in a bathroom, they were eating, they were filming, they were live streaming. I'm gonna put it like that. And he makes a statement about the smell that apparently everyone is smelling. Now I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. Ain't no way in the world that you gonna get me to eat anything if the odor is bad. So this is a burn cage, and believe it or not, they come in different sizes. You can order a small one or you can order a large one. But basically what it is this is what it's used. I know because I live in the country. I live in the South. What they use it for is, like, if you lived and you have an acreage, you can use a burn cage to burn up like all of the debris and wood and anything that you're collecting in there. So if you're cleaning up your acreage for whatever reason, and you got a lot of leaves, you got a lot of limbs, you got a lot of all these types of stuff, you can use a burn cage to get rid of those things. However, one of the things about a burn cage is that you can actually place, depending on the size of it. And like I said, it says here that he was dismembering a body. But depending on the size of it, you can literally take like those dismembered parts, and with the wood and the leaves and the debris and all the other stuff you put in this cage, you can literally burn. Some of those burn cages burn so hot that it's almost like you are cremating a body. And you can go look it up, Google it. It's just a square little a thing that sits up off the ground. It's got levels to it. There's a bottom level that you can put there's a grate that's attached that's at the bottom, and you can put all your little stuff in. Whatever you're going to burn, you can put it in there, light it up, and it will start to burn, and it will get hot. And like I said, oxygen keeps fires burning. So the more oxygen you have, so if you're sitting out in a field and you keep feeding it leaves and wood and whatever it is you're feeding that fire, you're in an open area, there is oxygen, it's going to cause for that fire to burn hot. And The hotter it gets, the better, the more that you can go to ashes. Where I'm at, a burn cage is not odd. Where I live in Alabama, a burn cage is not odd. However, it depends on the conditions. If you're in a dry area, a drought area, or anything like that, you can't do that. If you're in the city limits, a lot of cities in the state that I live in don't allow for you to have them. However, if you've got an acreage and you live out, people use them. They just don't get caught. Let's continue. He lied to friends, business associates, and others who noticed the strong smell of decay in and around his home. And remember, I just talked about the fact that there were friends that were saying he was apologizing to them. And to get this, he claims that the reason why the odor was so bad is because 2 hours ago, he used the bathroom to do a bowel movement. Now, if you have a bowel movement and the smell lasts longer than 10 to 15 minutes, you need to go see your doctor. You need to go to Pri-Med. You need to go to any one of these things, and you need to get yourself cleaned out, because there's no way in the world that anyone's bowel movement smells longer than 15. I would give it 30. I would even just extend it 30 minutes, right? But to sit up here when people have been there, he claims that he had a bowel movement two hours before they got there, and that is why it smells this way. Absolutely, positively not. Absolutely, positively not. You got to be the dumbest mofo to believe that. Before leaving on his concert tour at the end of July, he parked his Tesla on the street around the corner from his home. Excuse me. LAPD served a search warrant at defendant's home on September 17th. Now, mind you, he has moved since the first address. He's moved. On September 17, 2025, after the victim was identified by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner on September 16, 2025, inside the garage, detectives discovered evidence consistent with the dismemberment of a victim's body in the inflatable pool, which contained multiple linear cuts. Several biological samples, which tested positive for blood, were collected within the garage area. DNA analysis determined that various samples matched the victim's unique genetic profile. That's an interesting word. Various samples match the victim's unique genetic profile. What makes her genetic profile unique? There's something about her genetic profile because it's unique. Because usually people say the victim's genetic profile. What makes her genetic profile unique? Does she have some kind of illness that can be detected in her blood from her DNA? What makes the victim's unique genetic profile? Just think 2000 says she was probably type O. But type O is so common. I think O negative is not as common. I think AB positive or AB negative blood types are unique. But O is pretty typical. Let's continue. On December 9th, 2025, the medical examiner ruled the victim's death a homicide caused by 2 penetrating injuries on the torso. So you mean to tell me you dismembered this woman? Excuse me. See, there I go. You dismembered this girl. but you didn't dismember her enough. They couldn't find those stab wounds to her torso. On January 17, 2025, the victim's U.S. passport, maybe that's supposed to be 2026. The victim's U.S. passport card was found by a Caltrans worker off SR 154 in Santa Barbara. Evidence. The people will present the following evidence at the preliminary hearing, including but not limited to the description of photographs depicting the victim unclothed, as well as she was engaged with the defendant in SA activity when she was 13. Remember, they said that they found a huge amount of CSAM on his server on his iPhone device or iPhone cloud. As this evidence constitutes CSAM, the photographs themselves will not be presented. While all possible charges that could be proven are not filed, the CSAM is proof of their ongoing relationship while the victim was 13 and 14. Numerous text messages between defendant and the victim evidencing their relationship. Oh, look at this. Pregnancy, abortion, and the use of Plan B emergency contraception. Because there is an investigator, I think it's SF Investigations. He made mention of a possible pregnancy, but he didn't have like definitive proof. But the prosecution is saying that they were in a relationship. This girl had a pregnancy. This girl had a termination. And they were using Plan B emergency contraceptive. Messages through March 2025 proved defendant continued to manipulate the victim as she messaged. Listen to this. All we do is have sex and just hang out, man. I want more than that for myself. These messages were obtained from the defendant's iCloud data. Gone. He's gone. These messages were obtained. Okay. Defendant's cellular activity and communications derived from defendant's iPhone and Tesla, which demonstrate defendant's activities from April 22nd, 2025 to April 24th, 2025, including a trip to Santa Barbara County in the middle of the night after the victim arrived at his Hollywood Hills home. Surveillance video of the defendant driving his Tesla on July 29, 2025 for the last time before parking the vehicle and leaving on tour at the end of July. DNA evidence developed from bloodstains collected from the defendant's garage, which matched the victim's genetic profile. You know, they still didn't say, they're still not talking about that unique word. That unique word is something that I need for them to explain to me. That's true. Everyone's genetic profile is unique. But I'm just curious as why they used it that particular time. All right. Proof of the defendant's Amazon purchase and deliveries to his residence, including 2 chainsaws, a body bag, an inflatable pool, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a burn cage after April 24, 2025. Proof of defendant's purchase and deliveries from Postmates of a shovel from Home Depot to his home on April 24, 2025. Couldn't be bothered to go to the place and pick the stuff up. He had Postmates and Amazon deliver the stuff to him. Uber records showing defendant's transaction where he ordered an Uber to pick up the victim from her Lake Elsinore home. Okay, she was at her house that her family had. She was at her home. And he picks her up from the home. Whoo, let's continue because I have so much to say, but I don't want to say it right now. Proof of defendant's lucrative career as a singer and songwriter prior to 2023. April 23rd, 2025. Defendant had an album release party on the night of April 24th, 2025, before embarking on an international tour in late July 2025. Text message exchange between defendant and the victim on April 22nd and April 23rd, 2025, where the victim threatened to expose the defendant and destroy his career. This brief is filed to assist the court in understanding the scope and relevance of evidence the prosecution intends to present at the preliminary hearing. Baby, this was detailed enough for me. I may not be ready for what you all are going to present at the preliminary hearing. I may not be ready. The defense has multiple opportunities to request a continuance, but has not done so. Furthermore, California Penal Code Section 1050 requires the defense to provide at least 2 court day notice to request a continuance. In view of the limited scope of the evidence to be presented at the preliminary hearing detailed in this brief, there should be no substantial impediment to moving forward with the hearing. Dated this 29th day of April 2026. This is by Nathan Hockman and the person and Beth Silverman, who is going to be trying this case. Y'all. Y'all. This is not good. This is not good at all. When I tell you this is not good, this is not good at all. He's got an uphill climb. And once again, and I'll say this again, so many social systems failed this girl. So many social systems failed this girl. You knew this girl as her parents. And shout out to her brother, because her brother was the one that kept up with making sure that police reports were filed. Shout out to him. Her parents had an inkling that he was over there with David. They understood and knew that he was a grown man. I'm still trying to figure out how and where and when she got a passport to go to London. How, when, and where did she get permission to travel via airplane? Because I thought that there were systems in place at the airport that children couldn't fly unless there was a document from a parent saying that they could fly, or that particular person provided information, IDs, and all this other stuff. And maybe I'm unsure, but I thought that those things were in place. I am so saddened. I am very sad to know that this young girl had to endure all the stuff that she endured. all for the sense of wanting to belong, all for the sense of wanting to be loved, and someone is playing games with you. This is very sad to me. This is very sad. So we're going to be paying attention to the preliminary hearing that comes out, and we're also going to be paying attention to all the information that's going to come out from the preliminary hearing. I will follow up with you all, but what do you all think? Because this was just a precursor. Because the prosecution is like, oh, we got evidence. We got evidence. This is lightweight. This is what the prosecution is saying. This is lightweight. Wait till we give you all the minutia of all the evidence that we have. But also, too, I know that the prosecution wants to continue to keep the Rivas and Hernandez family as the victims. However, they have some questions to answer. There are a lot of questions. It's not like their daughter disappeared and they never saw from her again. This girl is traveling back and forth. An Uber picked her up. And like I said, she could have walked out the house, ran down the street, and got picked up. All of these different things. But I am confused. If she's a runaway and she is a consistent runaway, then usually they categorize stuff like that as a behavior issue. There are counselors involved. The school system is involved. The school's we call them the school resource officer. That's basically a police person that is stationed at the school. All of these systems should have been activated, but they were not. And I think, he should go down for the essay alone. He should be spending 20 and 30 years in the Who Scout, in the prisons. The grooming and all of that, yes, he should be spending good amount of time in the prisons. But I think that there was an opportunity for this family that they did not take advantage of. And at the end, they lost their loved ones. He is liable, D4VD, aka David. He's liable because he intentionally continued to have an illegal schmexual relationship with a child. Even after being warned off. Because once you send an Uber for somebody, yeah, you are wanting to be in that person's presence, knowing that it is illegal. That relationship within itself was illegal. All right, people. I don't see any more questions, but we do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, what do you all think about what the prosecution is really going to put out for this preliminary hearing? This stuff that they just put out is so juicy. It is so much evidence. And to me, they did a great and methodical job of making sure all their ducks were in a row. So let's see what the defense has, because the defense acts like they don't know what the heck is going on. I don't think that they realize how substantial all of this stuff is. I definitely want them. I definitely want them to get all the information, because I'm telling y'all, I know his music and his songs that continue to stream. I don't know if it was Spotify or Apple. Somebody dropped him or something like that. But I know that his stuff is still being streamed. I think it was Fortnite. But I still know that his stuff is still being streamed. But this is craziness. This is craziness. This is craziness. All right, people. We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a co-worker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye. And make sure y'all are hitting that like button. Make sure that you all are hitting that heart button. If you are watching me on Twitter, go over to my YouTube channel and just hit the thumbs up button for me. I really would appreciate it. That helps me in my algorithm. All right, people. And as always, bye-bye.